Before walls, roofs, or cities, humanity had only the open sky and the need to find shelter.
Then, natural caves offered something the open wilderness could not: warmth, safety, and shelter.
But eventually, humans began building their own shelter, using branches, leaves, grass, and whatever nature provided.
Soon, one shelter became many, and temporary protection slowly began to look like a real home. Then humans discovered that earth and straw could turn fragile shelters into stronger, cooler homes. Home was no longer just shelter. The courtyard became a place for family, work, and everyday life. Inside these simple homes, every object had a purpose. From the hearth where food was prepared to the spaces where families rested together. For many communities, home was not built to stay in one place. It could travel with the family.
Inside, the tent became a complete home, with sleeping spaces, cooking areas, storage, and everything a family needed. Then something changed. People began staying near water and fertile land, building homes that could finally become part of a permanent community. Once people settled permanently, their homes became more than shelter. They became places to cook, sleep, store food, and build a life.
And slowly, the space around the house became part of the home too, giving families room to cook, work, gather, and breathe. As more families settled together, a home was no longer just one shelter. It became part of a growing community. And the home slowly became a workplace too, where families could make tools, prepare materials, and earn a living under the same roof.
Stone changed the feeling of home. Walls became stronger, lasted longer, and offered protection that simple shelters could never provide.
Inside, those stronger walls meant a home could protect more than people. It could protect the things that made daily life possible. But settlements kept growing. Streets became busier, homes became denser, and eventually, small villages began turning into cities. And behind those busy streets were ordinary homes, where families still cooked, worked, rested, and raised their children. As cities grew, homes grew with them. Families began dividing one house into spaces for cooking, sleeping, storing, and everyday work. Look at this courtyard right here. It sits in the middle of the house, giving the family light, air, and a shared space to spend time together. And look up here, the roof was useful too. With flat rooftops like this, families had another place to dry things, rest, and escape the heat below.
Now check out the entrance. Even here, the house was designed with a little privacy before you reach the family spaces inside.
Okay, look at this house. It's still pretty simple, but compared with the earlier shelters, you can already see more privacy, stronger walls, and a much more organized home.
Now come inside. This is where the real story is. You can see people cooking, grinding grain, sleeping, and keeping almost everything they owned right here. And here's something interesting. The bigger cities became, the more different their homes started to look. Some families had space and comfort that others simply didn't. Come inside for a second. You can actually see the difference here. There's more room to sit, more storage, and even separate areas for everyday work.
And this is where they slept. Nothing fancy, but notice how the space is already organized around the family's needs. Mats, blankets, storage, and a little light.
Okay, now look around this whole house. You can actually see how everything fits together. Cooking over there, sleeping here, storage nearby, and family life right in the middle.
Now we're seeing something different. Notice those thick walls and the enclosed courtyard? Homes were starting to change depending on the climate and the way people lived. Come inside and look at this layout. Everything opens toward the courtyard, so the family gets shade, light, and a shared space without giving up that privacy. All right, we've moved into a completely different part of the ancient world. Look at these Egyptian homes. Thick mud brick walls and small openings helped keep that intense heat outside.
Come inside and look around. This is where everyday life happened. People cooked, rested, stored their things, and spent time together under the same roof.
And look up here. The flat roof wasn't just part of the house. It gave the family another useful place to sit, work, and catch a little breeze.
Now this feels different. We're in a Greek-style home, and notice where everyone's gathering? The courtyard is right at the heart of everyday life.
And here's something we don't always think about. The home was also a workplace. Clothing, food, and everyday things were often made right here.
Here's another change that matters. The house is becoming more divided. Instead of one flexible space doing everything, different rooms could now give the family more privacy and more specific uses.
And the entrance tells us something too. These homes open directly onto busy streets, but once you cross that doorway, the layout became much more private. Here's a detail that's easy to miss. Roman homes could actually be designed around water. Rainwater could be collected, stored, and guided away through channels built right into the floor. Now we've reached another big change. Roman homes could be much more structured, with this central atrium connecting the different rooms around it. And now the story takes another turn. Timber becomes a major part of the house, with the wooden frame actually helping support the structure while the walls fill the spaces between. Step inside, and the structure becomes even more obvious. Those heavy beams aren't decoration, they're carrying the house, while the spaces between them become the walls. There was another problem these homes had to solve: staying warm. The hearth became the center of the room, so the house was organized around the heat it could provide.
But not every home could spread across flat ground. In mountain settlements, people worked with the landscape, building into the slope and using the rock itself as part of the protection and structure.
And this is the clever part: the rock itself becomes part of the house. Instead of fighting the mountain, the builders used it to create stronger walls and naturally sheltered spaces.
At this point, homes weren't just about shelter anymore. Powerful rulers could turn architecture into a statement, building palaces that showed just how much wealth and authority they controlled.
And this is what I mean by a royal home being more corridors, reception rooms, and entire residential sections, all connected inside one enormous complex.
And then you reach the ruler's private world. Even the bedroom could be part of a whole suite, with spaces for sleeping, receiving trusted guests, storing belongings.
But palace life wasn't lived entirely behind closed doors. Huge courtyards like this gave the royal household light, air, and private outdoor space right in the middle of the complex.
Now the cities start changing the way homes look. As streets became busier and land got tighter, houses began growing upward, stacking family life across several floors. And inside, that extra height changed everyday life too. Instead of spreading rooms across a wide house, families could dedicate different floors to different parts of their routine.
Away from crowded cities, wealthy families had another option. Instead of building upward or wall-to-wall, they could spread out, with a large home, gardens, and plenty of land around them. Inside, the difference was just as obvious. A wealthy country family had room to spread out. They had separate spaces for gathering and relaxing, the comfort of a much larger home.
Even sleeping was becoming more private. Wealthy homes could now give family members dedicated bedrooms, with more comfort and separation than people had enjoyed in many earlier homes.
Now the family home's looking familiar in a very different way. Victorian houses brought bigger windows, separate rooms, decorative details, while still feeling like a place made for everyday family life.
And inside, the rooms became more specialized. You could have a proper sitting room, a separate dining room, and bedrooms upstairs, giving family life a much clearer sense of space and privacy.
And privacy was becoming part of the design. Separate bedrooms meant family members could finally have their own little corners of the house, instead of sharing every space together.
And here's a room that really changes everyday life: the bathroom. As homes gained better plumbing, washing slowly moved from a temporary setup into a dedicated space inside the house.
By the early 1900s, the family home was becoming simpler too. Less decoration, more light, and a layout designed around the practical routines of everyday family life.
And homes were starting to become places where families could actually spend more time together. A front porch wasn't just an entrance, it became an everyday extension of the home. Then modern design starts changing the look of home itself. Cleaner lines, bigger windows, and less decoration made houses feel brighter, simpler, and built for a new generation. Now we reach the 1990s, and this feels much more familiar. A typical family home was built around everyday, and for many families, that could mean quite a few people sharing the same space.
This is where 1990s family life really feels different. The living room was often the shared entertainment space. Kids, parents, television, games, everybody was in the same room. Welcome to our cozy shared room. It is a bit crowded, but we make it work. Every corner has its own story. By the late 1990s, the idea of home was reaching a whole new height. Buildings like these showed that modern life could move upward, far beyond the traditional family house.
Imagine raising a family this high above the ground. The rooms could still feel like home, but the view, the height, and the entire of living had become something completely different.
And then there was the view. Standing here, the city wasn't just around you anymore, it was far below you. Home and everyday life on an entirely different scale.
Then Shanghai pushed the idea even further. Jinmao Tower rose hundreds of meters into the sky, showing just how dramatically the modern world was learning to build upward.
Up here, the idea of home became almost detached from the ground. You could wake up surrounded by glass and see an entire city stretching out beneath your living room. From this height, the difference is almost hard to believe. A home was no longer tied to a piece of land, it could be hundreds of meters above it, surrounded by an entire city.
Then came Burj Khalifa. At 828 meters, this wasn't just studios to 4-bedroom apartments, taking the idea of high-rise living to another level.
Inside, the difference becomes real. Even a 1-bedroom apartment can fit a complete modern home, living room, kitchen, bedroom, and a view that most houses could never offer.
And when the family gets bigger, the space can grow with it. Burj Khalifa residences range up to 4 bedrooms, so even a large family can have separate rooms while living high above the city.
And at this height, even an ordinary morning looks extraordinary. You could open the curtains and find clouds outside your home, with the entire city looking almost miniature below.
Today, one apartment building can bring hundreds of people under the same roof. But instead of sharing one home, every family still gets a private space of its own.
The interesting part is what happens after the front door. You share the entrance, elevators, and hallways, but once you reach your floor, you step into a completely separate home of your own. Inside, the modern home is often a mix of both worlds. The family shares the kitchen and living room, but everyone can still have a private bedroom when it's time to close the door. Modern homes are becoming more diverse too. Some families choose smaller, smarter houses, designed around comfort, efficiency, and the way people actually live today.
Another modern option is the townhouse. It gives families several floors of private living space, while using much less land than a traditional standalone home.
When people imagine a dream home, it doesn't always have to be a mansion. For many, the dream is simply a beautiful, comfortable place with space for family and nature.
For many people, the dream doesn't stop at the walls of the house. A private garden gives the family somewhere to relax, play, eat together, and enjoy a little more space.
Inside, natural light can change the whole feeling of a home. Large windows connect the family with the outdoors while keeping the living space bright, open, and comfortable.
A dream kitchen doesn't have to be extravagant. For many families, the perfect kitchen simply means more room to cook, plenty of storage, and a place where everyone can gather.
And for many people, the perfect home also means having a peaceful private space. A comfortable bedroom, enough storage, and a little room to unwind can make a home feel truly personal. A dream home also gives everyday essentials a little more comfort. A spacious bathroom with natural light, a relaxing tub, room for everyone can make ordinary routines feel better.
A dream home can also be designed to waste less. Solar energy, natural light, water collection, and greenery can make everyday living more comfortable while using fewer resources. And today, a quiet workspace can be part of the dream too. A place to work, study, or create without leaving home.
From the homes we knew in the past to the homes we imagine today, one thing remains the same. We all want a place that feels like home.